have been warned that I need to get this filmed before dark because the light is terribly bad, and I'm horribly, I'm not great at the filming or the photographs or anything like that. However, because it is Gallery's 50th, and because gallery books have meant so much to me for such a long part of my life, we'll have to make exceptions here to get this video done and up and going. One of the first poems that I'd like to read, I think it's probably a, I don't know, is it a horribly sentimental note, but this book was the very first book and the very first gallery book that I bought. I was laughing earlier, telling my daughter I bought it with my own money. I was 17 at the time, and it was an object that I never let go of, and I seem to have brought it around the world with me, along with many other gallery books that I've collected along the way. Many thanks to Peter and Jean for their tireless work, and Anne and Suella as well. They've been great. So I'll read from Michael Hartnett's A Necklace of Wrens, and I'll read it for the simple purpose that it was the first gallery book that I bought, and the rest, as the fellow would say, is history. Moon Snow, 77. Myself outside at night, kicking snow jewels in a field. Each house frozen, each rook's nest a black moon swimming by the real moon. Myself dancing under the moon, an old dance with no music but pulse music. And myself lonely, the ancient loneliness. Over the border, torture and wounds, and death sneers, hands in pockets, whistles at street corners, and myself in the moon snow, praising a rook's nest, the poet, arrogant, verbose, safe. The first poem that I'll read is from my first collection, The Blue End of Stars. I chose to read a poem from this collection simply because it was the first book that I published, and it was as a momentous moment as that moment when I bought Michael Hartnett's A Necklace of Wrens. For those few moments at the kitchen table when I opened the box to see the book, The Blue End of Stars, much to my children's horror, they didn't matter for those few moments, so it was lovely. An unknown blue. I want to be still as a folded note left on a table before sunrise, silent as the crease concealing words that will not have been read, for all intents unopened, just a strand shimmering on the dark edge of a knife. The second poem I'm going to read is from my latest collection, This One High Field. I chose to read 3 sevens. I think probably, when I think back, all the gallery poets who, to me, so successfully wrote poems about their children or for their children. I'm not an envious sort of person at all, but I know that I certainly had moments where I had wished I had written a poem like they had. Took me a while to get there, but 3 sevens, I hope, is the result of that. It's for my daughter, Evelyn. 3 sevens. East. Late spring and Malmo and our rain-tattered lives. Yellows and blues appear in kind and lift the flatter land. From the balcony we watch sleep-nooked birds in the highest point of the lindens, and the woman who must descend flights to stand out of doors to smoke. More often than not I hear you humming. I am not oblivious to your thoughts. West. A parade of bicycles, the backcloth of sea and red tiles. Beyond courtyards we enclose ourselves to smaller, secure rooms, alive to what might be movement. Stilled worlds in portraiture and landscape. Footfall and weather occasion to intrude. Cross-currents of words float. We imagine interiors against our own, darker spaces we don't yet know. Oresund Bridge. The train stalled. The queue has amassed to a crowd. I know you want me to inquire, yet I know you know we're okay to wait. The sea is fog-choked, and the bridge. Sun behind cloud, efforts to press on. You stare through the carriage glass and steel, and the absence of being moved, or what I think is an absence of being moved.
May Day. Dreaming on the bus from Galway this last May Day, my gaze snagged on doorways near Ballinasloe. There were knots of yellow gorse outside scores and scores of doorways that were blurring past the windows of the bus. Someone had been up early and left them carefully there, the old customs, bright burls in the fabric of the day. I thought of people coming out of their houses later on in that May Day, of them lifting the gorse up like torch flares, shining the light on their coming year. This is a poem from Conor O'Callaghan's collection, Seatown. It's called The Swimming Pool. It goes under the cursor whenever I place my finger on the space bar and hold it like this for a minute. The blue screen shimmers the way a pool's sunlit floor moves after the splash of a lone swimmer. As long as this minute lasts, the season is somewhere between July and dawn, the soundless underwater of sandals left out overnight and garden furniture that will end but could just as easily go on forever. I could be forgiven for forgetting that it was ever there. The pool is only still again when I take away my finger, unthinking and unable to hold its breath any longer. As much as 2 pages further, it comes up for air.
I'm honoured to be asked to contribute to this celebration of Gallery Press, 50 years of Gallery Press, which is really wonderful. I'm 40 years associated with it myself, and I'd like to begin with a few lines which I wrote that long ago and which appeared in my first slim volume, and I like to begin readings with it. Though there are torturers in the world, there are also musicians. Though at this moment men are screaming in prisons, there are jazzmen raising storms of sensuous celebration and orchestras releasing glories of the spirit. Though the image of God is everywhere defiled, a man in West Clare is playing the concertina. The Sistine Choir is levitating under the dome of St. Peter's, and a drunk man on the road is singing for no reason. I'm a music lover. Music is probably the most amazing and supra-rational of the arts. And there are many kinds of music that I love, and music recurs in my work. I live in Carrick-on-Suir. That last piece, by the way, is printed now in Oven Lane, the book Oven Lane and Other Poems. And as I say, has been set to music several times. I live in Carrick-on-Suir in the lower valley of the Suir, at the tide head, and that's a significant point because we know the tide, that cosmic event. And I'd like to continue with what I heard a fisherman, a traditional riverman, say, explaining the tides to me and their association with the moon, except that he had it the other way around. What caused the tides? He was explaining what causes the moon. So Diana, the goddess of the moon. This is called Diana in the Tide. One evening by the river, a fisherman drew me aside, gestured towards water, earth and sky, and parsed for me his syntax of the tides, the neaps, the springs, and how the moon was deeply implicated. Walking on in the conspiring dusk, it dawned on me that deep down in his eyes, the fisherman implied it was the river and the tides that brought about the moon's remaking. I stopped to think on this beside the dark flood tide and saw the shaping goddess wavering under water. That's from my most recent book, Given Light. The older I get, the more interested I become in looking up at the stars and at the whole mystery of the firmament, and how it becomes more and more mystical the more the scientists find out about it. I'm also interested in photography, and I publish photographs as the covers of my books with Peter Fallon's cooperation. The covers of my recent books especially are photographs of my own, and I include photographs. The kinds of things that I am tempted to photograph or drawn to photograph tend to be images of abandonment, of dissolution, of change, letting go. I love the abandon of abandoned things, the harmonium surrendering in a churchyard in Aherlow, the hearse resigned to nettles behind a pub in Carna, the tin dance hall possessed by convolvulus in Kerry, the living room that hosts a tree in South Kilkenny. I sense a rapture in deserted things, washed out circus posters derelict on gables, lush forgotten sidings of country railway stations, bat droppings profligate on pew and font and lectern, the wedding dress a dog has nosed from a dustbin. I love the openness of things no longer viable. I sense their shameless, slow unbuttoning, the implicit nakedness there for the taking, the surrender to the dance of breaking and creating. I mentioned photography. That is from the book Oven Lane also, Letting Go. I mentioned photography, and the two components really of photography are time and light, which are really the mysteries of existence. I mentioned that I live in Carrick-on-Suir, in the town I was born in the lower Suir Valley. And the mystery of time is especially what fascinates me, as it does almost everybody, I guess. I'd like to also touch on family. And this short sonnet, which I'd like to read, is called Stormy Weather, a song title. It's about my parents. From a book called Going by Water, which has another one of my photographs on the cover. This is an anecdote my mother told me in her old age. My mother was a trained musician. My father was a music lover also and a bit of an artist. though he was a painter by trade, often unemployed and often ill, and we were fairly hard up. And my mother's music, when she'd get a gig, often saved the day and paid the bill that was outstanding in our house. So music was instrumental in my growing up for that reason. And my mother told me this little anecdote from their honeymoon in 1938, when they went to Killarney for a couple of days by train. And my mother's music, that's the first occasion, I think, when my mother's music became significant in keeping the wolf from the door. Stormy Weather is a song from way back in the 30s, and it was my father's party piece. The sonnet is called Stormy Weather 1938, in memory of my parents, George and Dora Coady. On their Killarney honeymoon, they found themselves with time and money just run out. Far off and deep downstream she would tell of that evening in the bar of Scott's Hotel, counting small change to make the train fare home, until she walked to the piano and played the intro to the Harold Arlen song, Stormy Weather, his party piece in those first years together. Go on, some drinkers called, go on. And so, by the night's end, the place was full of song. His hat a well of silver, and the proprietor proposing they stay on with a retainer. That given time was never quite undone by all the weather of the years to come. From the book Going by Water. Before I read a poem by another gallery poet, perhaps I can slip in another spare wheel, so to speak. And it's about the importance we have or don't have in the world. It's called Checkpoint. Out of the deep galaxies of detail, and the blind ways that we go, and the light or dark that shines on us, there is this measure of the nitty-gritty impact that I've made so far upon the earth. An unreckonable fraction of a millimetre in wear down of polished curbstone, the first on the bridge, southwestern side. After I step at midnight out of Maggie Dunn's in Carrickbeg, to cross again, no record of how many times in all of which no two the same in one direction or the other, to cross again that old bridge built before Columbus, on my way to sleep in Carrickmore, where the weir plays when the tide's away, and sometimes between quays I'm pulled up and asked where I've come from and where I'm going by stars that stand on night watch in the river. Gallery Press has published many books which are treasures over the years, and this is one of them. It's the new collected poems of Derek Mahon, one of my favourite poets, a wonderful, wonderful poet with an extraordinary range and an extraordinary wealth of culture in different places. The one I want to read is not exactly in Derek Mahon's usual style. It's a rap which he wrote for the Cork Simon community. A rap called Shandon Bridge by Derek Mann. She raps, but nobody lets her in. The winter nights are black as sin. Though it isn't New York, it's only Cork, where they distill the Cork dry gin. So many things she might have done, but she's out of pocket, she's out of luck, and just been dumped by her latest bloke. Shake her and wake her on Shandon Bridge, as she tries to doze and the wind blows like the cold breath of an open fridge. She sits here in the knowledge age, with a dirty face and icy nose, and train lines up to her grimy elbows. It's a great city, techno, noise, the bases covered from folk to jazz, at the Red Star, the Quad, Crane Lane. But she won't be getting on any train where things are still real again, in a post-real world that scares her stiff. Her thermal image glows with life, a faint red-blue you can hardly see, by the dark flow of the lovely Lee. A beautiful girl, but what a sight, with her old blue jeans and her grungy look. She barely survives amid the puke, without a home to call her own. So many great things to be done, like making a video of her plight, of reading her poetry, open mic above the pub on a Monday night. But here she sits, where rain spits at the pale reflected river lights, and the future life looks void and vague. She won't be going back home to Prague. She won't be going back home to Kiev. No, she's going to sit out here in the rain till she can find the nerve to look at the future long and clear in the bright prism of a water drop. The only direction left is up. I salute Derek Mahan for that and all of his amazing writing, and I salute Gallery Press for making it possible.